That brings us to the third major argument for the existence of God that he puts forward, and this is an appeal to the persistence of reports of miracles and the supernatural that we have from various people around the world at different times.
Right. So David Hume, the Scottish philosopher, famously wrote against miracles from what could be called a Bayesian perspective. It wasn't Bayesian because Bayes hadn't been formulated at that time, but it's basically a Bayesian argument, which I will get to. But Hume basically said, look, like there's always a better explanation than than the miracle explanation. Douthit argues we're actually in a better position now to accept the reality of miracle claims in the supernatural, even than David Hume, because we live in this secular society, and yet we still have millions of reports of the miraculous and the supernatural. So that should give the very persistence of these reports and claims throughout the process of secularization, post-enlightenment, as it were, should give us pause and should increase our confidence in the reality of at least some miracles and some supernatural encounters.
So basically, the fact that people are still reporting this stuff, even though we
Yes.
we live in the age of science and technology and increasingly secularism, suggests there might be something to them.
Yes, that's right. That's exactly his argument.
And how does he deal with the point I mentioned right at the start that some claims contradict each other?
So he does recognize that, but in my view, he doesn't discuss it thoroughly. So I can't say what he really, because in my view, he does not address that with the deep with the thoroughness it deserves. Because you're right, like that's part of the problem is many of these claims of encounters with the supernatural or of miraculous experiences clearly contradict one another. And this is a point Hume made. Hume said, okay, if you believe that uh, if you believe Gabriel like spoke to Muhammad, then you cannot believe that Christianity is the final say on religion. So yes, they contradict each other. What is more, I would argue that the Bayesian argument remains. That is to say, by definition, miracles are rare. So let's take a specific claim, the resurrection of Christ, because Douthit actually believes this literally. I think there have been something like 108, let's say 100 billion humans who have existed. And according to this accounting, one of them rose from the dead. So the prior probability of somebody rising from the dead, according to their own view, is 1 in 100 billion. Now, if you plug that into Bayes' formula, pretty much any explanation for that other than a person really was resurrected or rose from the dead is more plausible.
It does seem
So
that way.
people were deluded, people lied, people made it up. There are all kinds of different accounts for this that are much more plausible. And I think this is what is important because even if the denominator here, that is the bottom part of this equation, even if the evidence we have is like very rare, and you might say it's weird that we have this evidence, the important thing is that the numerator is really, really small. That is the likelihood that somebody recounted this because somebody was really resurrected or because something miraculous really happened.
Yeah, more compelling would be someone having a vision or claiming to experience a miracle and then being using that experience to be able to predict something in the future which then happened.
Right. Or, yeah, yes, that would be
Like that
much
would be
more
quite
compelling.
compelling.
Now, of course, Christians will say there were prophecies that were fulfilled. Now, there are, in my view, better explanations for
Yeah.
those apparent prophecies.
Mm.
What is more, another better example, we live in a world. So I think Douthit's argument is actually backward because right now we live in a world in which cameras are ubiquitous. We record the world everywhere. if miraculous things were occurring, if supernatural encounters were occurring, one would think that you would pick up an unambiguous example with the camera. Why, if there's the ability of a god or gods or creator to intervene in the universe from time to time, why does she seem to hide so well? Right. It's almost as if it is playing a cosmic game of hide and seek where we always lose when we seek hard, right?
Yeah. So, just to ask the same question again, does he anticipate these counters in the book?
So uh, I don't actually know if he grasps the Bayesian argument well enough to address it. I don't want to say he doesn't. I want to be charitable to him. In my view, he does not address it like anywhere near sufficiently. He does think some of these, he does anticipate some of these arguments. And what he says is, well, look, the skeptic has to choose either deliberate deception or lucid hallucination on some of these claims that were made by people who were not prone to belief in the supernatural and yet said, I had this remarkable vision or this happened to me or whatever. To which I would say, no problem. Maybe it's a lucid hallucination. Certainly, that would be more plausible than an actual supernatural encounter.
Yeah. I mean, all one has to be aware of to find this argument uncompelling is the fact that people do have hallucinations
Exactly. We
and that people can have um, profound experiences that captivate them, but that don't necessarily have any supernatural significance.
Right. So exactly. In fact, we can reliably create these kinds of visions and experiences, sleep deprivation, stimulation of the temporal lobe, etc. Uh, I think Douthit would say he might make some metaphysical claim that when you're sleep deprived, or maybe when you're in the desert flagellating yourself, you're somehow opening your mind to the metaphysical, and that allows the supernatural in which case, I guess I would just say that's more elaborate and less parsimonious than just the straightforward, it's some kind of hallucination caused by your brain.